In your earlier research courses, you probably heard about some of the problems and issues that led to both the United States and other countries developing plans and policies to help protect human subjects. And for the United States, we developed the Belmont Report. That was one of the first items that we did. And the Belmont Report reminds us that what we want to do is to show respect for the people that we're asking to participate in our research, do no harm, which is what beneficence means, and make sure that we're paying attention to social justice. And that means, for many researchers, it's not okay to research the same group over and over and over again, but it's also not okay to only research one group when we know that there are many other groups who are being affected by a particular issue. So we want to make sure that we have social justice in our choices of participants. Okay? The guidelines for the United States are found in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services guidelines, and they're in the Code of Federal Regulations, which is what CFR stands for, and it's usually cited this way in most of your reports or most of your, if you've done papers or something about the history of research. Okay. We do talk about the common rule, and that's the set of regulations that are related to following the Belmont Report, and most of us do use those. Many of us look at any of the IRBs in terms of the common rule. There's something else that needs to be mentioned, and that is that we have institutional assurances of compliance. For LMU, it means that we have a number called the Federal-Wide Assurance Number, and that number is registered with the Department of Health and Human Services. It means that we have agreed that every piece of research done by anyone connected to LMU will meet those federal guidelines. So 45 CFR 46 is very important to you and to us. We also make sure that research goes through the proper channels. Now, there are some schools on campus that are moving toward having kind of a pre-review. I don't know that the School of Education is currently doing that, but I think that nursing is in the process of coming up with kind of a pre-review of any research that they're planning to do. The medical school already has a pre-review before their IRBs come to us. Okay? But there is only one IRB for Lincoln Memorial University. We handle all of the research proposals that come to us from faculty members, staff members, and students, graduate and undergraduate. So we read a whole lot. Okay. The other thing that the common rule really emphasizes has to do with the informed consent of our participants. And you'll find, let me find that one. There we go. You'll find that the informed consent documents in your informed consent plan is gone through with a fine-tooth comb. And it needs to be understood by whoever it is you have chosen as your participants. If you're going to use 8th graders, they've got to be understanding exactly what you say in your informed consent document. We have a couple that are posted on our website, And if you run it through one of the readability things, you actually have to be a graduate student to be able to understand the way it's written. And we have to translate the content, the format, the template, into words that we think parents are going to understand. Okay. There are a couple of other issues related to informed consent, and that has to do with, I'm getting very hot over here. Okay, I'm going to have to move a little. Okay. We need to make sure that the parents, if you are doing anything with children, we've got to make sure that the parents can understand the document that you've sent them. If it's written above 8th grade level, there's a real good chance that they're not going to be able to understand it. Okay, is that true for most of your schools? Okay. The other thing, do you have children in your school who are maybe first generation and their parents' only language is Spanish? Okay. And one of the issues that we ran into, if you have a bilingual researcher, you're able to translate the informed consent document into Spanish, and hopefully the person can understand it. What if you are not a bilingual? What if you do not speak English and you hire someone to write your informed consent? For IRB purposes now, you have to have the translation verified by another Spanish speaker, which is kind of a new wrinkle. But that's some of the new guidelines that are coming out. One of the things that we also have noticed over the years is that it doesn't matter when your guidelines were written. They were probably updated in the last week or two. So there's a lot of keeping up with what the new guidelines are saying. One of the things I read last week, or it could have been, no, it was last week before snow. But one of the guidelines I read about FDA, if your informed consent document is not correct, they will fine you $10,000 a day until it is corrected. And everything that you have done up to that point, you cannot use the data. So informed consent is very, very important. Okay. Don't do anything under FDA guidelines, Sam. Okay, all right. You'll be okay. Just avoid those. And VA guidelines. Okay. Okay. And that probably does, that can be edited out maybe. I don't know. Okay. Let's see, the federal water assurance. Okay. All right. We take all proposals involving research with human subjects. We have a sister group that reviews all guidelines that have all proposals that have to do with animal research. Now, there are times when we have the possibility of a research project involving people and animals, and that would mean that both of us would be reviewing those proposals. Okay. If there's any type of safety issue involved, if there's any exposure to radiation, we have another group that looks at anything related to safety issues. Okay, and it's like, oh gosh, this is more complicated than I thought it was, isn't it? Okay. The goals of the IRB. We want to protect the rights and welfare of our participants. We also want to protect our researchers. Okay? We try to keep you from getting in the situation where the university's liability policy is not going to cover you. We try to keep you from developing a protocol, a way of working or intervening with clients or your participants that's not going to get a lot of people coming back to you. Okay? And so we may ask questions about things related to protecting yourself in addition to your participants. There have been times when we've had to ask for the first 3 chapters of dissertations because we could not understand some stuff. There have been times when researchers have conflict of interest, which means they may be paid by another organization, and they're doing research that's going to help the other organization. Okay, and that becomes then a conflict of interest for them to be able to do a non-biased research project. So we try to head that off for you. Okay. Let's see. We always support the responsible conduct of research. If you really think that you have done ethically the right thing, then we'll work with you in trying to make sure that nothing is going wrong. We have a process in place where you report unanticipated events or adverse events, and that usually involves either calling Melissa or me immediately if something goes wrong. Let's say that you were doing something and you were asking kids or adults to ride stationary bikes. Somebody fell off, okay, and got hurt. Okay, instead of saying, oh, well, I'll take care of that and put a Band-Aid on them and everything, no, you better call and let us know. Because if that person sues you and sues the university and you have not followed the guidelines, the university may not help you out. Okay? I told somebody that, well, yeah, it's your house and your car. Because they wanted to do something that was a little bit more risky for the participants. And it's like, well, okay, if we don't approve it, you go ahead and do it. Your house and your car. Like, oh, okay. I'm trying to scare you just a little bit. Follow the guidelines. Follow the guidelines. If you have questions, call us. Okay.
Now, does this also cover data breaches as well? I mean, that would be the other thing about all this in the news these days, people's computers getting hacked into.
Yeah, let's give you.
Thumb drives being lost.
Oh, yes. You had that training.
Yes,
Okay.
it's the same concept. If you're doing surgery on someone or whatever, if you think you're at any liability, you might want to report that to us if anything were to happen. If you lose your laptop that has your information stored on there, please report that to us because that's going to be something that we need to know. We went through a training not long ago where we heard about something as simple as a company that had bought back copiers from someone. And these new copiers, when you scan the documents for print, it stayed stored on the hard drive. Those drives were pulled and were supposed to have been reconditioned, but they weren't. They're resold. This company in Alaska was fined over $1 million just for the data. So that's just as important as if, you're doing a study on someone, like Kay said, where they could fall off a bicycle and be hurt. Anytime you lose that data, that could also be a problem.
We have to remember that there are a lot of people who are willing to sue you for any reason possible. As a researcher, you have stepped out of your role as a teacher, if that's what you're doing. You have taken off the hat of teacher and put on the hat of researcher. I had a doctor, one of the doctor students, try that again, medical students had developed a research project. His idea was that he was going to take some surveys around to different doctors' offices, leave them with the person at the desk, who was going to hand them out to that doctor's patients. Oh, you can visualize this, can't you? Hand them out to the doctor's patients, collect them, and then he was going to boogie by every once in a while and pick them up. It's like, well, no, you're not going to do that. The only person who conducts research is the person who's named as the researcher on the IRB application. And I know, oh man, I was going to put a box up at the teacher's desk. and everybody was just going to put their papers in their box. Oh, I was going to get my friends who are teaching English 8th grade to hand out these surveys for me, and then they could collect them and I'd come by and take them to lunch or something. No, they are not researchers. They have not had the city training. Have y'all had the city training? Whew. Good. Okay. So some of this stuff's going to make a whole lot of sense to you. Okay. All right. The person who is the researcher who has the contact with the participants is who? Who is it? The person who is named on and signed the application, right? It's like, oh, okay, all right, I won't do that project then. I'll do another project, right? Did that change anybody's mind about something? Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see. Research, of course, means it's a systematic investigation. It can be designed to develop or contribute to generalizable knowledge. You could publish it. You will find people who are interested in what you're doing. Okay, if you do your dissertation, it's generalizable, right? And it's available to lots and lots of folks, right? It's not just sitting in your home library, right? You know that the whole world has access to your dissertation? Is that? It's like, I wasn't planning on that. Okay. Uh-huh. Now that I don't know about. I know that with mine, I had to fill out a release form for the Library of Congress and pay them a certain fee to keep it in their files and things. No. 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 Really? Maybe nobody's bought mine. I don't know. Okay. It probably was. Yeah. Yeah, we wrote ours in hand and then had this. No. It was a long time ago. Really was. Okay. Human subject. And this is something that gets kind of interesting for us. Now, if you have data on people who are already dead, there are some researchers who contend that that's fair game. Okay, you can go in and look at any records for dead people. Now, I don't happen to buy that. Oh, you have to wave your hand, jump up, whatever. Yeah, okay, makes you feel better. Okay, it's not working. Okay, I'll keep moving just a little bit. Maybe I'll keep this one up. Okay. We have had some issues with people wanting to do research with the cadavers that we have for the medical students. And there is a process that people release the bodies and all of the tissue samples and everything for research purposes, and it's handled in one document. If somebody's wanting to do something that they think needs to go through us, as long as they provide us with the uniform form that's used for cadaver release, then we're okay and we're able to approve it. So, anyway, anytime you are collecting your data through intervention or interaction, that person is a human subject. And we have a lot of guidelines, and you might want to check on this because there may be some changes in FERPA that are sort of related to some of the HIPAA regulations, because the HIPAA regulations recently changed. So you may want to double check on that if you're planning to use data from your school. Okay, you want it to be systematic. Well, you heard that in Research 101, didn't you? Okay, generalizable. There are some questions you can ask about that. If it's not generalizable, and this is not statistically generalizable, that is not what they're talking about. But if somebody else could use that information to help them get started, or if you're planning to make it available to folks, then you may or may not have to go through the IRB. We do have a system for dealing with case reports. Case reports, you can't have more than 3 people involved in as a case study. You might be able to do it on an organization, provided the organization has agreed to it. And those case studies can be done with permission from the people who are not minors. Okay, if you're going to do a case study and it's going to be kids, then you have the parental permission, guardian permission, and assent of the child. Observational study. Okay, I'm going to go to the mall. I'm going to watch people and write down really weird stuff. Okay, and I could do that and probably publish it. All right? Like, okay, I remember seeing the group of 5 teenagers over the Christmas holidays. They were all on their phones talking to other people. But they were walking together, and you knew that they were shopping together. They had 5 other people with them on their cell phone, or maybe more. I don't know if they were doing conference calls. Okay. Anytime you have interaction or intervention with children or other sensitive groups, like you want to go and do something in a nursing home or a group home, you have to do the IRB. All right. Intervention, interaction, identify. Y'all can read that one. I'm getting tired now. Okay. The looking at risk. How risky is it to sit in this room? Not very risky. Maybe. Okay, unless we have tornado coming through or anything. Okay. All right. Okay. If I gave you a little bitty survey, and it had 2 questions in it, and I was going to publish it. I'm desperate for publications. Okay. My first question, how did you prepare for this class? And I got you to write it down. Second one, how are you participating in this class? How are you helping the participation in the class? And you wrote down your answer. I said, okay, turn it to me. Is that high risk or no risk? Think about those questions. Did I prepare for this class? Did you get your syllabus off Blackboard and read it in advance? Ooh, some people actually did. This is good. Okay. Yesterday, 6 of 7 students did not even know that the syllabus was on Blackboard. Okay, I had a bad day yesterday. Okay. All righty. Okay. We have to look at risk in terms of what the intended consequences can be and what the unintended consequences can be. If it causes a problem for the person that's greater than what the average person would experience, then it starts bumping up to higher risk. Okay? I have a kid, and they're going to do some medical research. They want to take a blood sample. Now, if you know anything about blood samples and things, there are ways that you calculate how much blood you remove from a child based on body weight. Okay. Did you know that? I learned that. Oh, it was so exciting. Okay, I just found out there's a little chart and everything. Okay, all right. Okay, now the researcher needs 4 milliliters. I don't know how much that is. I'm not good with that. Who knows what millimeters are? Milliliters.
I think it's like the equivalent of 2 teaspoons.
2 teaspoons? Very small amount. Okay, but the kid, they want to include in the research, the chart says no more than a half. Ooh, okay. And then here are these people. Oh, here's a kid here. Come here, let me get your, and parents don't know. All right? Uh-huh. You think about this. Okay, these are things that can happen. And these are things that the IRB has to look out for. Okay. Luckily, we had a person from Physician Assistant Program who said, no, that's too much. Uh-huh. So we were able to help that researcher revise part of their protocol. Okay, but we have to be on alert to that. You have to be alert to that. You have to think about all of the possibilities that could happen with your research participant. Intervention. What do we mean by intervention? How do you intervene at school when you got a kid picking on another one? You step between them? You just say stop it and they do it? Okay. Yeah, you got to have a method for doing it, and you want to make sure that you know what your limits are, right? Okay. You do not tackle someone who has a gun in their hand in your school, do they? Do you? Is it your job to do that? Depends. Okay, all right, just checking. All right. No, ideally we wouldn't, okay. But we want to make sure that our researcher has thought about the intervention that they're planning to use with the person, okay? They want to make sure that they're using best practice, that they're not just making up something because it sounded like the thing to do, okay? A golf management person could decide, well, what you do if somebody's being a bully is you hit them over the head with a golf club. Okay, you know. Okay, you want to make sure that they have really thought through the intervention, and that's that visualizing the methodology, if you can see yourself really doing this. Okay. Private information, making sure that we have privacy. We talked about privacy. Not asking sensitive questions in the middle of the cafeteria or in front of the mall on Saturday. Okay. All right. Okay. It's not going to be made public. Okay, we know that. I'm not going to read it all to you. You guys have read this before, haven't you? Is it coming back to you? Some of it? Great. Okay. Okay. Look at our group of people who are considered vulnerable. Children. All righty. Pregnant women. Oh, and under the children, there's a whole section on how you deal with neonates and babies, okay, and non-viable births. Oh, I know. And that to me just, I don't know that I can, I'm hoping I'll be able to read one when one comes in. One of the research proposals comes in. I've read a couple of them. It was like, ooh, that breaks my heart. Okay. The institutionalized individuals, if we have a person who wants to go into a prison population and ask questions about, do you smoke? When we are reviewing the IRB proposal, it becomes a full review. We have to have a person who can represent the interest of prisoners also read it, and it may be one of the members of the IRB, or it may be one of the people we call in from the community. So we have to do that also. Any cognitively impaired people will also be an issue. Okay, this is part of 45 CFR 46. And, oh, we had another whole list here too. Employees. Why are employees considered a vulnerable population? You can be fired? Yeah. Okay. I had someone who wanted to go to a business that had several satellite offices. And their idea, of course, was they would ride over in their white horse to do the research and drop off the surveys. The receptionist would hand them out to people as they came in and ask them to fill them out. And if anyone had seen some of the questions, it's like, well, do you have a good relationship with your boss? Okay. If you could change a policy here, what would you change? Okay, all right. And the receptionist was not a researcher. The researcher had not gotten permission from the company to even go on their property and distribute. Do you think we approved that one? No, we didn't. No. So we're trying to protect employees. We're trying to protect employers. We're trying to protect everybody. You know, we kind of get into looking at the whole process, and we sometimes will try to visualize what the person is telling us that they're going to be doing. Okay. We're doing on time. Okay. I'll talk. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Oh, look, it says everybody. Everybody has to take the training and sign the form. Okay. This is your part. I'm giving you. Okay. Yes, this is your part, isn't it? Oh, take them to the website. That's it's a little hard to find.
I'll be short. Yeah, we're a little hard to find when it comes to looking for forms. So. Just kind of wanted to briefly show everybody where all our forms are located. Once you log on to our LMU website, down here on our left-hand side, we've got current students and faculty. Through that, click, and then once again, we go through our research group grants and sponsored programs. That's our Office of ORGSP. And then one more click, down on the left again, to our IRB board, or our Institutional Review Board. Once you're there, all of our policies, all of our forms, there's lots of questions, directions on how to do your city training, guidance on case studies, all of that's there. Forms, everything should be included right here. If there's ever a problem that you can't find a form or it doesn't open, it's not working correctly, call me and I'll walk you through it. We've got checklists for all of our different types of review, exempt, expedited, and you won't find one for full, and that's because there aren't any checklists for that. Once you know your full review, that's the basic thing. It'll be full all the way. Research and grants. And then through the IRB. We're trying and hopefully going to get a tab on the very home page that says research, and that'll make it much easier to be able to find all of this. We have samples of consent forms, assent forms. All of that's there. You can just kind of go in and look and pull from those if you need those. The adverse effects form, if you have any of those are there. And something to remember, once your IRB is approved, you get 365 days of approval. If you're still working on that IRB at that time, you're going to want to go ahead and get your IRB renewed. Try and get those into us at least a month in advance so we have the time to look at those in case it happens to be full review, so that there's not any lapse in the project. Because once that project lapses and it expires, we're going to ask you to send in a new IRB form. Go ahead. If you're still working, collecting your data or manipulating it, yes, we want to have that renewed as long as you're doing that. Exactly. Yeah, it's still an active project. It's still ongoing. So, yeah. Yes, please. Right, because you never know when you might need to go back and manipulate that data, change things around a little. Yes. Let's see. What else do we need? If you've been approved, and you think, okay, there's something I want to do different. You're not necessarily locked into not being able to make that change, but we're going to request that you do a request to amend form. It's short, 3 pages. Just go through, give us what you would like to change. Even if there's a study or a change in your co-PIs, maybe you're bringing somebody else into the study with you. We're going to need to know that. That's going to require an amendment. I'm going to go ahead and open up the application. And like Kay was saying at the beginning, we're going to go back to our 8th grade English class. Our who, what, when, where, and why. And once we started talking about this, it made so much more sense. It just brought it so much clearer. Title of our project, what are we going to do? Our project dates. This sometimes we have problems with also, but if you know in advance what your start date's going to be, put that in there. Our principal investigators, who? That's going to be you. If there's anyone else that works on the study with you, that's also going to be considered a co-principal investigator. I went ahead and I highlighted this here in yellow on Part C where it says student and outside researchers. This is the part that we have sometimes where we fail to get signatures that we need. And that's going to delay the application. So that's just kind of a little word of caution. And mostly I know with dissertations there's not going to be any funding, so we'll just skip through that. Our research statement. This is where it gets really tricky sometimes. The more information that we can get, the better it is, because that helps us better understand the project. So just ask yourself, what is my research question and what is the purpose of the study? Those two things are going to give us a better understanding, and hopefully we won't have to come back with so many questions. Question 7, our participants. Of course, those are all pretty self-explanatory. Just tell us who you're using as your groups, how you're going to contact them, how you're going to reach out to them. Informed consent. Who are you consenting? What type of consent are you going to try to get? And how are you going to get that consent? And then on question number 9, the data and consent collection. That's going to be how are you going to collect that data? Or collect that consent, I'm sorry. We're going to ask you on 9C there to kind of give us a description of how the consent forms and the study materials are going to be distributed and collected. And that goes back to Kay talking about, anybody that's working on this study with you, if you just want to leave a box and have them drop those back, that's probably not going to work unless they're a co-PI on the study. That is part of the responsibility of the researcher with the two hats that they wear, you know, the difference between being just a teacher and then switching over to that research. You kind of have to put on that thinking cap. You're going to need permission from your school board and the principal. Exactly. Yes. Exactly, and I'm glad you said that because there's something that I know I see a lot of anymore that I really like. And to me, using SurveyMonkey, making those surveys electronically available, that is the easiest way and the best, most confidential way, I think, to get those out there because you're not asking anybody to physically hand fill out a form that's going to be left laying around where someone else could see it. And then you don't have to really have the responsibility of taking, you know, your time to go back and collect all those because they're going to give you all that information right back electronically. So to me, I think that's the best way. But just send them a link. Yeah. Yeah. think what you were talking about was where our methodology department in question 10 comes in, doesn't it? About what they're actual wanting to study and telling us how they're getting to that information. Risk factors, that gets into the beyond minimal risk. Any potential for coercion, we kind of need to know if there might be anything that would influence someone's decision to take part in those surveys. Likelihood of serious risk. You know, tell us if you think there's anything above and beyond that minimal risk that someone's going to encounter. If there are any benefits to the subjects or contribution to the general knowledge in the field that you're inquiring about. If there's any compensation or rewards for taking part in surveys. We need to know about that and how that reward will be paid to those people that participate. Getting down to the end here. Our submission materials, anytime that you have a flyer, an announcement, an email that you have to send out with that dissertation or that survey, we need to have copies of those. Your data instruments, we need those. Your informed consent. If there's a debriefing statement. Anytime that you decide you need to use a video clip, music, photographs, any of those items that are going to be included with that, we need to see those also because we have to take a look at each one of those things that are included. And if we don't get those, that's going to delay your application and take a little bit longer to get you approved. And then the very last part, back to the signatures again, here in the yellow. We need to make sure that we get everybody's signature so that we aren't delayed with those applications and have to hold off any longer than necessary. Anybody that's named a co-investigator needs to be listed here also. Include a copy of their city training certificate with the application. And at that point, you're done. If you've got all that stuff included in there, you can zip it to me electronically. We'll look through it and then make sure that you get us a paper copy also that we can keep in files that have the actual signatures on those. Mm-hmm. And that's acceptable? You think so? Because I hadn't come across that before.
Maybe see it.
we talked about, what is the IRB? Oh, I think you've already gone through that part. Okay, yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the review process. One of the things that confuses people to some degree has to do with choosing whether or not they think their project is exempt, expedited, or requires full review. Obviously, if you're going to do something with kids or impaired people, it's going to be a full review. But that choice between exempt or expedited is a tough one to make. And sometimes Melissa and I are usually the ones who make the decision at what level it needs to be reviewed. And we have been known to check with another person on whether or not, this one's kind of okay, let's think about this. Anytime I get a red flag when I'm reading it, or I have questions about, I'm not sure what they mean by this, I'm not sure how this is going to impact people. If I see that there's a chance there is more than that very minimal risk, I'm going to bump it to expedited. And that means that one or two other people read the application. Okay? Yeah, I know. You're supposed to guess. You guess. Mm-hmm.
Well, no, actually, if you go back to our website, there where all of our forms are listed, we have some checklists that give different categories for exempt and expedited that you can kind of read through and see if yours matches up to, maybe category 4 of exempt or expedited 7, which is a lot. We see a lot of those. You'll know when you read the descriptions, unless it's borderline.
Yeah, and we're the ones who catch it if it's borderline. Okay. Exempt really doesn't take a whole lot of time when we read through, as long as we've got all of the material that you need us to see. Okay. If you have not submitted the survey, if you have not submitted your recruitment email or your memo or whatever you're going to do, if you have not submitted your letter of permission from your board or your agency or your institution, all of those things slow you down. Okay? Other things that will slow you down and may keep you from being in the exempt category or the expedited have to do with a lot of inconsistency. We have many of the proposals that come through. On the application itself, they have one title, and they tell us that they're going to be doing this. On the informed consent, they have another title, and they tell the parents or the participants they're going to be doing this. Then we come along with one that has the survey. The survey has nothing to do with what the informed consent. I know this is like, oh, it breaks your heart. It's like, okay, they've worked on it, but were they awake when they worked on it? You really have to ask that. Inconsistencies like that, when you are describing the process and it doesn't match anything that you have said anywhere, that becomes a really major red flag. And that'll get it up from exempt to expedited, because it's like, am I reading this right? Okay, am I following this? And I may have already sent back some questions to help me decide if it was exempt or expedited. Okay? Sometimes we'll get responses that help us, and sometimes we get responses that do not help us. If they don't help us, they may still go to another reader. Okay? This is delaying you. It delays you. Lots and lots and lots of folks run that risk. We've had folks who sent in their application at the end of spring term with the idea that they would just start right up there doing their research at the beginning of fall term. We sent back question after question after question. Are you alive? Checking with them. They don't respond. They come into their class then on the first day going, IRB, I don't know what's wrong with them. They just keep sending me questions, okay? And I sent them back notes about what I meant, and they still haven't done anything. Well, guess what? It's not going to happen until all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. It's just not going to happen. We can't afford it. The feds can come in and audit us at any time. They can shut down our entire research project, our entire research program for the university. Got it? Okay, all right. We're protecting ourselves too. Okay. One of the things too, there are the categories seem to be very, very clear, but we have to answer a lot of questions with it depends. And somebody smiled up there with the it depends thing, because it's really all shades of gray. If you're doing this, then it's exempt. If you're doing this, it's going to be expedited. Okay? So it's a tough choice sometimes for you, and it's okay if you guess wrong. It really is, because we'll have to look at it and let you know, okay, no, this is actually expedited 7. It sounded good as exempt 2, but the questions you're asking are more sensitive or could cause some problems. And that's where things get bumped up. Okay, does that make sense to you? Okay, good. Let's see. Okay, no risk. No risk. Yeah, pretty quick turnaround. Okay. If you've sent in everything. Okay. If you haven't, 3 months later, we may still be looking at your stuff. And you're going like, we're exempt? Yeah. If people haven't signed, if they haven't done the city training, there was one lady, it took us almost 7 months to get her to do city training. And it's like, oh, no. This is not acceptable. All you've done is delay yourself. Okay. Did you have a question?
When we've done the city training, we just save our,
Oh, okay. It's automatically submitted to Melissa. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so when you say that you have completed your city training, she knows it. She can check your name. Yes. Okay. Oh, well, we threw them all away. No, we didn't. They're all still there. Okay. There is a rule about retaking the training every 5 years. Okay. If you're within the 5-year period, you're still good then. Because the city training changes also as the rules change. Okay. Expedited. Melissa reads all of them. I read all of them. And sometimes basically we have to get another person. It can take longer than 2 to 3 weeks, depending on who's available to read. Okay. Summertime is really tough for us, but I usually have a backup person who can do any expedited. We do not do full reviews during the summer. We do not do a full meeting in June or July. The first one will be probably mid-August. We meet once a month. When is our next one? Thursday. Our next one's the 16th. Okay? And then I think we're trying for about the second week in the month, because that seems to work for folks. Okay, full review. I would look, okay, if you have projected dates where you want to start and end, I would back up about 3 months if you think there's a possibility it can go to full review. I would back it up. Okay? And in fact, it's not a bad idea to back it up for any of them. That way, no matter what goes on and how many questions we have, you're still in good shape to start on your date. We have a lot of folks who will put their date on it, but it's the date that they have signed it. And it's like, no, your signature does not give you permission to do this. It's only the official letter. And when you get that official letter, there's a date on it. You might want to put it into your calendar reminder thing and back up doing a continuation for a couple of months. Okay, not just 30 days. Back it up a couple of months. Okay. Let's see, different types of projects, blah, 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 blah. Okay, all right. And that's duplicating information. Okay, risk-benefit assessment, privacy and confidentiality. Okay. There's a lot more stuff there. Okay. It is, yeah. I think we've added some things. Celeste. Yeah. Okay. But this can help you. Read through this when you're getting ready to do it. Read through it. If you've got questions, give us a buzz. Send us an email. I'm filling out this part of it. I want to use these words. Is that going to work? You know, and we can even help you do that. It's much better for you to check before you submit it than to wait and get mad after you submitted it and it's 4 months later and you won't respond to anything, and then you come storming into the office. That's not going to speed up the process for you. Okay? Holding a gun to my head would do it. I'll sign anything. Okay. And you're going like, oh, I'll keep that in mind. Okay. All right. But I cannot help you unless you have met the guidelines, because I am not going to jail, which is what the feds have the option of doing. If we've signed off on things, if we've done things, you can go to jail and you can be in the cell next to me. But we're not going to do that if we can.
We certainly don't do what we do. Give you indigestion or gray hair.
No, I did it.
So.
Okay. I have bottles of Tums if you need them. Okay. Okay. All right. Informed consent. Okay, here's a trick. If you're interested in doing an informed consent for children, or an assent form, or anything like that, if you Google the term that you're interested in, you will probably find some pretty good examples. I will also tell you, and you did not hear this from me, the University of Southern California has some beautiful, beautiful tips, some examples of completed IRBs with really good wording. As does the University of New Mexico. Okay? Old Dominion is no slouch. Okay? We do not have all of the material that they do, because they have 17 or 18 Melissas working in their place. Okay? And they've been doing this a whole lot longer than we have. Our IRB is about 8 years old. They've been doing it for 40 and 50 years. Okay? Yeah, so they've had a lot more experience with this. The other thing is, and I probably shouldn't tell y'all this, but when we run into something we don't know what to do with, we have a friend at University of Tennessee who's been doing this a whole long time. We have a person at Covenant Hospital who's been doing this a whole long time. We've got a person at Vanderbilt, and we've got a person at University of Kentucky. Okay, and it's like if I have a question about FERPA, I call a fellow named Daniel at the University of Kentucky, And this fella knows his stuff. He says, okay, let me ask you 4 questions. And he'll do his 4 questions. I say, no, they're not planning to do that. Yes, they're planning to do that. Well, they can't. Without saying this. Okay? So it's like we're like a collaborative effort to make sure that you guys get the best product that you can come up with. And we do our part in helping you get your product together. That's what we're in the business for. We are not out to, I don't like the way she wears her hair, so I'm not going to let her do her research. Okay? You know, he was a real snot the other day when he called. I'm not going to approve that. No, we're not into that business. Okay. Oh, we got to edit that out too. Okay. Okay. Keep in mind that what you submit to us on your signed application is what we expect you to do. If you change the title, you let us know. If you change the number of people that you're thinking that you're going to get in touch with, let us know. Okay? There's a little bit of leeway on that. There are some IRBs, if you tell me you're going to get 422 participants, you're going to get 422 participants. So sorry. That's it. Unless you send me a change form. Okay? Okay. Okay, we've got that. Did we get through it? Yes, we did. Whew. Wow. Okay.